All right. Good morning. Welcome to 2024. It's here. I can't even. Um, so we're doing snow this month and winter. I didn't want to limit it to just snow because we're not getting it. So
No.
the snow picture that I sent you guys was from the storm 2 years ago, at this time 2 years ago. Um, Luckily, I did take a lot of pictures that year. So if you've painted snow with me in the last year or two, it's from that day.
One
And
day.
yeah, the one day. So we'll keep using that as much as we can. If anybody has any snow pictures that they want to share and use with the class, feel free to send them to me and we'll do that. Um, First, also, too, for everyone, I've been kind of brainstorming. So some people are now having problems with Tuesdays. It's always everybody goes back and forth. Some have problems with Fridays and some have problems with Tuesdays. So I switch them. I don't necessarily want to switch, but I was thinking about doing a paint along Friday, kind of like extra informal on Zoom, a shorter period of time, just kind of watching me paint. I'll talk while I paint, but just more of like a demo, paint along if you want, or watch if you want. So stay tuned for that. I think I'm gonna try and figure that one out and how I would run that. That way, you know, a little bit on both days for anybody who's interested. Um, so today we're gonna just it is January, and I know a lot of people don't paint during the break and the and Christmas time, and I didn't teach at all during December, but I did paint a little bit, which was nice. But here we are. So I want to do two quick ones, and I say quick, you know me, relatively quick. We're going to be doing one with an underpainting and one without, just as a comparison slash reminder. I did sometime, I think it was last year, we did up at Ocean County Artist Guild. We did I just happened to paint really fast that day. So I did two paintings, one same size, one with an underpainting, one on black paper. And the comparison between the two was just really kind of cool. It was just nice to have to see the difference between what the colors can do. So that's what we're going to do today. And we're going to keep it simple. I know what I said looks a little complicated and it's kind of scary, but we're not going to do everything because it's just like clouds and it's just like waves. Nobody's going into the woods, finding that exact spot and counting the twigs. So we're going to do however many twigs we want. Um, let's see, is there anything else I wanted to mention
You were gonna talk about, well, you said it in your,
about texture?
no,
Oh.
you said that you might do something with on Patreon or something.
Oh, yeah. I'm working on, well,
I'm not sure.
Patreon will probably come not as quickly as I thought. An art teacher friend of mine, Robin Moore, she teaches currently in Linwood at Bellhaven, and she wants to start. She's looking for her retirement, and she's getting antsy, so she wants to do. We're gonna do more things of um, not just my pasteling and my charcoaling. We're going to have other classes for other people that we're going to kind of do some online collaboration. She does acrylic and some, and again, she's been an art teacher her entire career. She's my age, so she's got plenty of years of experience that, we'll get all kinds of things in there. She does paint parties too. So hopefully eventually we'll even have a location.
Can use the sugar.
She's the yellow.
She's what?
She's the yellow.
The Robin's former students.
What's up, talking?
Yeah.
Huh?
It wasn't me that was the problem. Other kids wouldn't be able to do work.
Oh, well, that's, yeah,
Yeah.
that becomes the
Like,
problem,
I was
right?
able to.
You did it all.
I was able to finish
Yes.
everything, but
Some kids can't do that. That's okay. Well, her son Miles is Sam's age, so they're happen to be best friends. That's how we got to know each other. And then marching band. So
Right.
Robin and I did props and marching. So here we are. So that will all be coming soon. We're still. She wants to jump a little faster than I do. I'm a planner. I want to have all of the ducks in a row before I get
Yeah.
going. But she's like, let's start. And I'm like, ooh, okay. So we're throwing out some little stuff now because she has a paint party coming up for
Oh,
the
nice.
PTO.
Oh, that's good.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and spotlight myself and then switch cameras. Oh, I need to find a pencil too. Pencil. Okay. Let me switch. Is my camera even on? That is the first question of the day. It is on. Okay. Let me adjust a little bit. Hopefully, I don't trip over myself. Sorry for the shaking and wobbling. Try to get more of the reference photo in there for you guys. Okay. So the first thing, like I said, we're going to do two versions of the same thing. Oh, hold on a second. Just so I don't trip over myself, I have one of the legs pointing right where I'm going to be standing. So let me twist again. Sorry. Yeah, I don't need that. Thought I had it all lined up. I didn't. Okay. So because we're going to keep it simple and we're just working on lines first. Like I said, this scene, I did crop it down quite a bit because I just kind of like that little solid patch of snow there. And the reflections in the water are really cool, but we'll keep it simple. This can also just be blue sky in the reflection. It doesn't necessarily have to be reflective of all of those twigs and branches, whatever you're comfortable with today. Whatever you really feel like doing today. So I'm gonna do I'm gonna do the same line drawing on both. Just so it's just kind of out of the way. So check your angles. It's just a little creek that kind of goes back. So I'm just gonna follow quickly. Compositionally, I cropped this pretty much how I wanted it. Could it be better? Of course. But I'm just focusing on warming up for the snow adventure. I did talk about in the email. I will be doing a little more playing with texture. I'm not going to go like crazy with a lot, but I'm thinking of texture in the way of just a little bit of gesso, not necessarily worried about any pumice or anything like that, just to help emphasize all the little twiggies that you get in the winter. How nothing has foliage on it. So that kind of thing. All right, so my line drawing is consistent of the water's edge, a little bit of information about how that snow is coming down the hill, and then just the one big fat tree. All the other trees I can add after the fact. So I'm going to do that again over here. And it doesn't have to be exact. And especially, I know some of us really get caught up in too many details and we get going, and I want to concentrate on loosening up today. Just big, bold marks. Not really worried about anything because we can wash it off, right? So the paper is just the paper. And we can certainly just get rid of whatever we drew, right? Hopefully you guys can see that. I'll give you guys a few minutes. And you guys in here, Tommy, if you ever want to like stand up closer behind me to see what I'm doing, feel free. You don't have to sit far away at any time. You can just get up and walk around. Alright, so just take a few minutes to get your line drawing in. I'm going to pause the video and refocus the camera. Because I moved it around so much, I just want to make sure it's focused. I'm going to pause the camera for just a second, the recording. Okay. So we are back now. How's everybody doing? Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and get a couple of cups for rubbing alcohol. So if you don't have your rubbing alcohol out at home, go ahead and get that out. Do you guys need cups?
I have one, yeah, that's this.
Okay, I'm just sure. Cleaning out the office at work. So normally, if you've painted snow with me, you know I use like bright oranges and pinks underneath the snow. I still will probably do that, but I think I'm gonna have different colors where the trees are. Maybe just kind of pretend some different things are happening, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. So, just like with any other landscape painting, I don't have a sky, right? So that would be my furthest back. I don't have a sky, so it's not the furthest back. So there's so many things happening in this one painting, or this one photograph. It is a pretty close up. There's not a lot of depth, meaning, everything is within a few feet of each other. I'm not going a mile, there's not a mile away horizon line. This is all fairly close up. So all of the things that we're looking at in terms of distance and what comes first, it's all relatively close together. So I do, though, need to kind of peel back the layers. I need to peel back. I need to pretend those branches aren't up front. I need to pretend there's not snow sitting on top of the branches. I just need to kind of think about if I started walking up this section of the creek, all of that in front of it would go away. So what's back there? That's what I'm thinking about first. So I'm going to start on getting this one done, starting the underpainting on the right one first. That way it can dry. We can start on that one while it dries. Or actually, now we can still do one of this. That's the big deal. So I want to pick some nice, subtle orangey browns for back here, where all the twigs are. And I'm just going to pretend there's more light way up high than what there is. And I'm also going to use a little bit of some magentas. I'm saying this as I'm looking, my table is backwards, so all of my trays are in the wrong order, which is fine. The water is pretty dark, but I think what I'm going to do is I am going to add some pretend sky reflections in the water. You do kind of, I don't know if that's snow reflections or sky reflections. It was partly cloudy that day, so it could have been a little of both. But a bright blue sky in a snow scene is always one of my favorite things. So do a little bit of both. All right, so I'm looking for my hard sticks, my hard pastels that I can get some of that color in there. First, and again, since we're doing the alcohol wash, we want to, if you have harder sticks like new pastels, you want to use those. You don't need a lot of pigment because the rubbing alcohol spreads it wonderfully. Yeah, the cheaper the stick, the better because it'll just spread the pigment. farther. If you only have soft sticks, don't worry about that either. You can certainly use them, just use very little pressure. You don't want to leave a lot of pigment behind because it will gum up your paper and fill the tooth. This one might be good. So I am doing, I am experimenting a little bit with my color palette today. I normally wouldn't do that, but it's a new year, right? Do something a little different. So it's kind of an ochre color. I'm gonna put a little bit of a lighter. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, it's a lighter orangey, yellow orange. Just with it. Again, I'm still trying to keep it light, but I wanted a second color. I'm gonna look for a nice magenta, a little red violet, if you will. Not too much of a bright purple, but I want that in my water, I think. I am literally playing it by ear today because I wanted something different underneath. I didn't want all of the norms today. I think during this year, what else I want to do is start to practice or play with different materials to share with you guys. I want to play with different papers, maybe even some pan pastels, just different stuff, just see where we could go with all that. That'll probably be after the summer, because during the summer I probably won't teach much, but I'll be hopefully playing with it. All right, so I want nice hot pink. I think I will stick with the traditional hot pink underneath the snow. My tradition. This looks a little redder. That's okay. I'm not worried about it. So we've got some nice abstract blobs here. What? I need to go grab a paintbrush. So each paint. Have you worked much with pastels? Your mom said you got some new ones. Yeah. Oh, who was it that you watched? Sorry. The tree.
Lester and
Oh, Karen Margolis. Yeah, she's wonderful. Yeah, and she has so many videos out there. Karen's like the OG of YouTube. Well before, well before any of us were COVID bound, figuring out what the heck to do with YouTube.
She started it.
Yeah, she was always doing it. So, and she's super sweet.
Have you met her?
I did for briefly, like she wouldn't know who I am. Like I just, said hi to her, but she is just like she is on her videos. She's just that sweet in person. All right, so I'm gonna start with the lightest colors. And I'm just gonna kind of wash it in. I don't mind the drips. The drips are fine. They are my friend. If I don't like these colors, the different colors that I'm choosing, I will paint right over them. I do not care. So I'm starting with this yellowish brown, which, it's arguable that it's not necessarily the lightest color, but we'll see. So now I'm gonna go into my pinks. I am using directional markings with my brush, just kind of moving everything how I want it to go. Just as a little roadmap reminder how these abstract shapes react with one another, how they're shaped, what goes in what direction. That little swoop on the hill there. A lot of tree over there. But
I'm gonna color this one.
now the solo tree that I put here. Alright, so the magenta is not as deep of a color as I normally would use, right? I would normally have that ultramarine blue in there. So it's kind of a nice change, right? It's a little different. So we have some nice colorful abstract shapes that we need to let dry so that we don't have an icky mess. So I'm gonna let the drips take over and do what they want. Always like the drips. Tell me if it gets too hot in here, because I got this big sugar down.
I can stand next to you.
Really?
Maybe.
That'd be nice. I like one good snowstorm a year and then I'm good. I don't need snow all the time, but I do like one. That's a second. We're gonna pause the recording for just a second so we're not watching paint dry. All right, so I'm basically dry. So let yours dry and I'm gonna get started. So just kind of watch for a minute and see how we go. And again, if you can't see me, you can certainly scooch around me over here. I know it can be a little hard. All right, so I said in the beginning, let's concentrate on just kind of free markings. All right, so I'm gonna go with first again. So now, here we go. What comes first? For me, it's gonna be what's furthest back. I'm gonna look at all these trees back here in that orangey yellow kind of a color, and I'm thinking what I'd like to do first is just get an overall kind of a glow, maybe, possibly. That's the goal. Hopefully I get there. Of just those nice orangey browns that we see from all those trees that don't drop their leaves all the way, oak trees. So I just want to give a little bit of information about the light and the color. So I'm going to go super light at first and touch just some nice vertical marks. Let some of that yellow, orangey shine through a little bit. Don't want to overcomplicate it. I'm going to keep my color choices out so that I don't forget what I used. This might be really gross. Yeah, it's really gross. It's a little too mustardy. The same exact color in a different brand. All right. Do that too much. All right, so this is a less expensive brand. This is those Sohos. Whew, that's bright. But on top of the colors that are already here, give us a little bit of reflection. So this one's acting a little different. on top of the color that's already there. Again, this brand has a little more binder, a little less pigment, so it's a little, it is pretty soft, but it just sits differently. So I'm gonna go back down a little bit. I'm overcomplicating things though, so I have to remember that it's not doing exactly the simplification that I talked about. And browns are always tricky for me because I always end up being aggravated because I don't like just I feel like they just get too bland. Ooh, good. All right. Ooh, I like this. So this is a nice orange mixing right with everything, and I'm just gonna leave it here. Not gonna blend because remember, A, I want to work on mark making today. B, once you blend, you can't unblend, right? So this is just representing some light along with the trees. It's not the trees themselves. I will add some trees in there. And based on the location, I'm gonna have to add trees before I do much more. So we have some winter trees. You can go into your gray browns or into gray blues, into gray purples. I'm gonna take my stick. This is kind of a taupey dark browny gray. And I am going to do two things. This was a round stick. It has a nice flat side to it. I'm gonna take the round part and just roll that corner up. Right, so that's where we take this whole outer edge and we roll. Different directions. Some leaning one way, some leaning another. If you want something a little fatter, take a nice little edge, give it a little shimmy going up the paper on its side. I'm going to use multiple colors, but I'll just do a few trees in this, and then I'll keep going in a different color. So because I was pretty light-handed with all those oranges and things like that, I can just shimmy this stick right on top. If you're a little heavier handed, you might have some trouble getting the pastel to show properly on top. So if you need to, you can carve out a little pathway. So you can just take a dry paintbrush and just scrape away so you have some tooth for your pastel to stick. I'm going to go into some, let's see, some darker violet grays. Probably a little close to in value. Yeah, it is. But that's okay. Just something different too. This is the same value as the gray that I just used. It is a Terry Ludwig, so it's rectangular, but I can still roll it. I can still roll that top corner a little bit. I'm not even thinking about snow yet. We'll get there. So I want to get, let's see, what do I want to do before I go too far? Again, I'm trying to keep it simple. So I'm just literally kind of peeling back and looking at this top portion of the photograph. And I've got a very rudimentary line here of trees going up. So what I think I might do, I'm going to risk it and take one more brown. One more brown. And give a little bit of a really light dusting. Because at the bottom, because there's all that stuff, all those twigs and everything else, just giving it a little more contrast, right how that hill goes. And I'm barely touching the paper, but this is a unison and there's a lot of tooth. So it works. It's grabbing that UART paper, sanded paper nicely. And I don't really have to worry about it. I think I'll take this same color and make this my big fat tree for right now. So I'm using a little side to side shuffle so I don't have just some straight up and down line. I know snow is going to sit on the whole back side of this. So I'll do that. This could be a nice color for the creek's edge, how dark it gets. So I'm just gonna emphasize the creek's edge. And then I will get the big tree's reflection in the water because that is really close. So that tree would naturally be reflected in the water. Other ones I can pick and choose. I can still put a little bit of information in there. I don't want to go too crazy because then I'm painting around things. But I think it's kind of place things. And then, I'm keeping my sticks here. I'll zoom down here in my tray as I use them. And I'm going to keep them there because when we get to the second one, I'm going to use the exact same colors just without the underpainting. So we'll have two different paintings and we'll get to see how the colors react when. Okay.
With the dark color.
Yeah.
I have a darker shades of brown.
It's so you turn, or
It's kind of only on the block.
the purple.
Okay, so I'm just kind of staring at what's logically going to come next without giving me grief, right? I don't want to get all excited and paint something that's going to be a problem later. Looking at there's that reflection of the snow and the water right here. That looks really pretty. But I can't go there yet. I have to wait. I have to wait a little bit for a lot here. So things that I'm thinking about, this whole section on the left, all these teeny tiny little twigs and how everything's going to be represented, whatever the underbrush is here, that's just, we see, very soon. I actually, I moved some things around. So my drawing isn't exactly what the picture is, which is fine. But what I know I can do, I can put the snow on the ground. Right? And the reason I can put the snow on the ground is because all these sticks live on top of it. And they're not big fat tree trunks, they're little tiny sticks. So little tiny sticks can go after the fact. So I'm going to put some snow down. Just like with everything else, I'm going to start with the shadowed snow. So when you're thinking about your snow, don't think about white, especially for the shadows. Think about some blues and lavenders. Decide, you can have blues and lavenders and turquoises all in those shadows. So I'm going to start to pull some of like my periwinkle blues. And the lighting on this photograph isn't terribly extreme. You can certainly make it more extreme than what it is. You can have really, really deep blue shadows right in here, and mid-tones up here. So just do whatever makes your heart happy. Of course, the trick is to always, to grab a color that's not going to flatten everything out. And that can happen. So have a piece of test paper because sometimes turquoises have a lot of gray, and can flatten everything out. Same with blues, same with lavenders. Nobody wants flat, boring snow. So I'm grabbing a few things out of my box to test. I have so many things pulled because of the
seascape. I'm not really sure.
Dark. So I'm gathering a range of values. Yeah. So when you're looking at your blues, I'm just looking at one goes towards the side of cerulean, one goes to the side of cobalt. You can kind of mix them all together, but your life is a little easier when you just plan it out a little bit. That direction. All right. This is one of the sticks. This is a giant unison stick. They're like $13 a piece. So worth it if you ever paint big. I mean, you can put that. That's a Terry Ludwig right next to it, so you can see the difference in the size there.
Yeah.
So, all right. So I grabbed this one for that medium tone. This is a nice little turquoise. I grabbed a nice medium blue, closer to the dark blue for some shadows. A step up, step lighter, and a nice gray blue. And then I also grabbed a lavender. So the lavender and the gray blue are the same value, but I think they're going to play well nicely together. So I have shadow colors in my hand only. So now what I'm going to do is, again, I can paint the body of snow anywhere. So I'm going to do a little swoop that's going up against here. Look at this little swoop. I'm just going to start with the one color and see how far I get with it first. Using the whole side of the stick. I want a nice organic line. When I get to the little bottom fluffy part here, I put the corner of my stick down and I give it a nice reverse C up. It gives itself a little pile. Ooh, it's really bright on the screen. That's really reflecting. That's some bright blue. My apologies for how neon that looks right now. So let's see here. A little bit of shadow coming out of there. Back in here. A little less exact back over here because there's some. So I'm gonna leave that out. All right, so let me look at next blue, see if that, who that was. All right, so right up with all of that darker shadow, I have my next level of blue. I'm gonna put right with it. Some of it on top of, some of it just next to it. I'm just looking for those sharp angles so I can keep everything nice and loose. Again, my goal today is to focus on my marking and not blending. So I'm very carefully looking at direction. And again, this isn't my lightest light. This is a nice medium blue. So there's some, the way the snow falls behind it and this path back here, you can see a little bit of snow shadows. There. So that's what I'm going to do. I do like leaving that pink to shine through a little bit. I like the way that looks. All right, let me look at this. I'm going to test this lavender and see if I even want to include it. Sometimes it becomes too much. Oh yeah, see now when I put that lavender in there, it's really gray. It's not offering me anything. So I'm going to put my lavender back. All right. So this is still a little bit, it's not gonna be my lightest. This is a nice, that turquoise. Of course, it's such a big funky stick. So I'm gonna put a little bit of it. I'm not gonna go crazy. Not worried about putting snow on twigs just yet. We will get there. Right now, I'm gonna find a nice bright. Now, I don't need to go white. You can if you don't have a lot of lights. But I'm thinking about is that yellowy color that I have in the background, which I kind of want to tone down a little bit. I'll do that too. Because it is yellowy gold, I can pull my light creamy colors. It doesn't have to be, it can be like that, off-white creamy, almost the color of the paper, but a little brighter. So you don't have to go straight to white. You can also pull into the pink family, like the palest of pinks, if you have it. I did splurge. I treated myself and got the Terry Ludwig lights. Yeah, I couldn't help myself. It's on sale at Christmas. So what I'm gonna do first, before I go too crazy, is take one of those pails, and see that's actually the color of the paper. I'm gonna tone down in a couple of places these trees, the background. It's a little much, right? And I'm not gonna do a whole lot. I'm just kind of give a couple of places because I know I'm gonna put snow on top of there. I'm just toning it down, and I can re-emphasize the my hand. Yes,
It's like a creamy white.
Okay, so this is an almost white yellow in my hand. So now I'm just looking for those glorious shades of light coming through. Being careful, I was just kind of dragging a little bit of the darker color, which I don't want to do. Just use, and this is a new one, so I'm using that beautiful sharp edge to drag. Now some of this is just being dragged right over the shadows and just pulling.
Oh, it's pretty.
Cleaning it off on my hand. Don't muddy things up. Now I'm gonna step back and see kind of a mess I've made. I might do a little bit more with the snow. I'm trying to leave it as simple as I can because I still have that water reflection up front. I still have snow to put on trees. Things will start to get pretty busy, right? He was barking outside. It's 1 a.m. again. I kind of wonder if people are, pulling, or handles and stuff. I saw that another Kia. All Kias, good. A lot of them have been Kias, but not all of them.
Is it
Because
easy to break into?
there's a couple of, my son's included, but we got the factory fix. The Kias that have keys, that have actual keys and not just the button fob, the kids can use a USB cord to hotwire the car. And I don't know how they're breaking into the car, but that's how they're stealing the car. There's a whole thing on YouTube called the Kia Boys, and that's
my
like their
God.
challenge, and that's what they do, and they go take the cars and
It's
they
like
wreck
as a
them.
it's like as a joke, but
Yeah.
then like now
But
everyone's
now,
gonna use it.
yeah. Yeah, so when I bought my son a Kia, I had no idea, and the insurance was like, "Oh, Kias are really expensive to insure," and I'm like, "Why?" And they're like, "I don't know." And then I see all that, I'm like, "Ah, come on."
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's a little bit of a pink, and I don't like the way that dulled things down, so I'm leaving my pale pink out of it. All right. So before I go too far, I do want to address a little bit more shadow where the creek goes up into the distance, which I actually, I probably made my little jut out a little too far. Kind of lost some creek there. Oh well. So now when I go to put twigs and such on top, there's snow behind it, and I'm not going to have to try and put things in after the fact. And we'll give a little bit more shadows. Okay. So, oh, there's a nice little ridge here. Hmm. So I'm trying not to get lost in, you know, when it comes to sand and when it comes to snow, I'm not a big fan of worrying about, footprints in the sand or, how the snow has all those little mounds and stuff. I want to give a loose representation of those mounds, but if I start to really um obsess, it doesn't go well for me. It doesn't flow right. So I am going to let's see. I'm deciding whether to go between the bottom or the top. I might do some more on the top because that's going to dictate how the reflections go, how far I go into each other. So I'm going to stay with some of the colors that I've already have pulled. I'm not going to go any darker in value in this painting. I really could whip out the Terry Ludwig eggplant. I did buy a box of 6, by the way. I had to.
They were on sale.
They were, yeah. So I did buy it. So I'm gonna use this darker color, get a couple more trees in there, branches and such. And I'm just focusing on the background. I'm not worried about the scraggly little things up front, or that lovely branch that goes right across the front. I'll get there. Not quite yet. So what's fun about doing this is when we go to do this painting, we basically have a roadmap, right? We have a roadmap, we have all the colors, everything we kind of want to do. It's already laid out for us. It's just a matter of execution. So that's how this is going to go today. So I'm spending a little more time making decisions on this one so that when we get to the next part, the decisions have already been made. So that's a good argument for painting the same picture more than once, which I don't do very often, so shame on me. I'm just toning some of that golden down a little bit. It got a little out of but I do like it back there. So I'm just using that purpley gray that I made trees with before and just giving it a little shimmy over the top before I start to add the snow on the branches, because that will be what's next. How's everybody at home doing? Anybody need any help? I'm gonna get a little shimmy here into the water, not too far. I do want to leave space for the snow reflection too. All these little branches coming out into the water, those are super fun too. You don't have to put that many, you can just put a couple. But that can be done after you get to your after you finish your water. So don't get too excited and put those in now because then you'll be painting around them. All right, so I want to get the sticks that I actually chose for the snow. This little tiny nub is not going to be great for rolling at all. I would typically add snow to the branches like I made the branches, which would be rolling. But this isn't going to work very well. So I'm just going to use the corner and start lining. This is a darker one. This is a nice medium blue. I'm gonna put brighter blues on top, but for right now, we go dark to light and pasteling. So that's what I want to stick with, is that little bit of shadow underneath the bright from that creamy yellowy white will pop right on top of it. I'm just, again, because I was so careful to not really shove pigment onto the paper, I have plenty of tooth that this blue grabs on top of that brown. The fun thing about painting snow and all these little tiny branches is you can have snow sitting on top of branches. You can have branches looking like they're made out of snow. There's so many, the way the snow piles on things, you don't have to be so specific. And I'm very gingerly, again, I'm just keeping the same color in my hand for a minute, but I'm very gingerly adding it to the background, again, to tone it down. And there will be the lighter snow in just a second. But for right now, I just want to start that hint of, there's a lot of snow back there. There's a lot of little tiny leaves that are holding snow.
And that's a gray.
This is the blue. This was my
blue.
medium
Oh,
blue
okay.
from the mid, not the darkest blue that I have, but the next one up. And I know that there are tiny little leaves in the brushes and all that. I'm not worried about leaves, right? We know that. I do not worry about actual leaves. But now it's starting to look like we're building a little winter wonderland. Now the giant turquoise that I pulled out is too fact, but I do want a little bit of turquoise. Oh, and this one looks almost white, so and it is a round one, so I'm gonna use this for a minute and just get some multi-directional rolls here. I wanted to decide to use if I was going to use this turquoise or not. So I'm adding a little bit of this turquoise that's the same value as the darkest blue that I have in there. So they work well together. They don't fight each other. And this turquoise wonderfully does not have too much gray in it. So I'm just going to add it to the background. Now, in the photograph, I took away, the trees are really tall right there, so I took away the concept of the sky. You can certainly add a sky in there if you want. Um, I've got my lightest light. I'm gonna start tucking, right? Let's see. Put that right on top of that blue there. Up into the trees like it's making little piles. Now get some brighter branches. When you're making all of these little branches, definitely take a minute to change directions, right? We don't want soldiers all lined up in a row. We want Mother Nature back there, we don't need it to go too crazy. Add a little bit of a drag, that lightest color. Whew. I'm gonna step back for a minute, see how I can. Go back here. Good. All right. So now to work on the water. I'm pretty happy with how this is all shaping up, so I'm going to work on the water. Reflections in the water are notoriously darker, and it's like that. I mean, this is Birch Grove Park here in Northfield, so it's not brackish water, but the water is really deep and really dark, and where it's not deep and dark, it has all the brown muddy leaves piled underneath, so it's dark. It's always dark. So what I want to get in first, because again, thinking about what's going to sit on top, is some of these snow reflections are in this beautiful, well, the printout looks like it's like a darker turquoise. So that darker turquoise that I added to the snow, I'm going to start with that and make a little suggestion of the reflection. I don't want it to be a completely different color, so I will add some blue to it. Okay, so that's the reflection of the back of the tree there. And add the darker blue right along with it. This is what can get a little tricky, is getting that to look like it's a reflection and not just more snow on ground. I might not put sky down in there, only because the sky color might compete too much with the snow and kind of mess me up a little bit. I am gonna go a little bit. It's yeah. So this isn't it's not a Terry Ludwig, but this is a unison. It's on the gray, more on the gray side, not on the red violet side of the deep purple. And I'm using this in addition to that red violet that I was using, just to give a little bit of extra punch. Oh, there's a duck. Right in the center here. There's a duck in the picture.
I see.
Yeah. That's probably why I took the picture with the duck. Because there was a couple of them, they were really cute. I'm just gonna take a minute and kind of go through. I'm not gonna put the duck in there because if it took me that long to see it in the photograph, it's really not gonna go well.
Yeah.
If I try to paint. That is always my rule. If it's hard to interpret on a photograph, you're really gonna have a hard time interpreting it in the form of a painting. So I'm just gonna add this color to a few places. And again, this is a composition that's all fairly close up. So, when we do distance paintings, you have the you have to change as you get into the distance. You have to lighten things up a little bit as everything goes far away. But nothing's really that far away in this piece. So you can have the same colors in the foreground as you do in the background. What I might do though is add some of those, a little bit of those oranges from the background, like the darker ones. Okay, so before I go too much further, let's step back again. So you know how it goes. Whenever we get closer to the end, we got to step back more often. So we don't get too crazy. Okay. So I don't like my fat tree. It's like two lines. It's like two trees. It's not really cohesive. So let me get some more. I'm gonna get some shadowy snow back. And that's something that I didn't notice up close. That's why I always say stand back. If you are at home and you haven't stood up yet, please do. It is necessary. It's another reason that's, if you can stand while you work, to stand while you work, because you're more likely to wiggle and move and step back. In which you see so much more when you do that. All right, I struggling with what I want there.
No.
Is that anyone messaging me at home, or is that just
Is
regular
unbelievable
big
fan.
fan? Well, I am on the admin team for the Pastel Society of America's Facebook page, and everybody kind of just chit chats with each other all day long in the morning, especially in the morning. And so I do have Facebook open in the background here. Turn it off. I hear it. Spending a lot of time on that tree. I don't know if I want to. Oh, that's kind of nice. All right, so I took a lavender and just kind of smoothed some of that out a little bit to make a little bit of bark. I do kind of like this lavender. Maybe it sticks. Here. All right, so the next thing, I cannot ignore all of those little tiny branches up front, or I could. That's the other thing. You can certainly decide, you know what? There's no little twigs up front. You can leave that little clump as is at this point. Like if you're happy, we don't have to have all of that. I'm gonna add some just so we kind of know what to do. But even without it, it's kind of nice without it.
Yeah.
It's just like a little creek in your backyard kind of a thing. But I'll put a couple in there, and then I'll get maybe one fat stick that sits out with snow on it in front of it. Standing back, I like the way it looks without. I am a sucker for those big branches that go right across the front of a painting, as you guys probably know. But I think I'm gonna leave it out this time. I think I'm gonna keep it simple, even more simple than what we've already done. So, let me take that secondary portion. I'm gonna use this to do a couple of those little tiny branches up front. Ooh, I don't like that point. You can also do this, it doesn't look bad on screen. I just don't like the way it looks in life. You can also do this with a pencil, especially because we're working so small. These little twiggies are pretty small, so you can just take a pencil and just kind of almost use the same motion of rolling.
Does it carve it in?
It does do a little carving, but you don't have to push that hard to leave the graphite behind. So I'm going to do a little bit of that. And again, you can always cover it up. Maybe go away with a little tapping, lighten it up a little bit. Yeah, I don't think I like the extra twigs. I'm going to cover it. Oh, I lost a little chunk of pastel. I'm just gonna. Some of that lavender back there, since there's some up front. Well, I think I will. A little bit. I'm gonna break up that one little line in here. Kind of just a little bit too linear. So I can add a nice little drag on top, and then I can do another drag. I gotta stop messing with it, but I do want to so if I'm gonna do that one big fat branch that is just kind of laying in the water, I'll have it come from right here. So it can be a little bit better. Right, so this is the darkest gray purple that I had out before, that I was re-emphasizing things with. By itself, it doesn't look like much, so we can go ahead and pile. I'm gonna start with the darker blue, which now I have this tiny little sliver, so I'm gonna use it to blue. I would normally be rolling it, but it's a sliver, so I can't. So I'm gonna go right along with that branch. And then I'm gonna pop in the lightest light. Because I do have a nice edge, I'm gonna take the whole side and give it the tiniest little hole. And so it's piled on there. Yeah, it's not. This stitch is cute. So the placement of your twig, if you put it over the water, is kind of important in terms of how you represent the snow that sits on it. If there's not enough contrast, you won't see it. One of the things that I have learned the hard way is those darker medium blues, they like to be down first. They don't like to go back down on top of other lights. They get a little smeary. So if you have to push a little harder, be afraid to push. And then I can even take a little more. All right, so I'm gonna put a little bit of light in that water. And I'm just barely dragging. I don't want to overcomplicate the water. I'm going to pause the video there because I feel like I'm finished with what I'm going to do to that one. All right, so I'm going to pause. All right, so I just wanted to say too, with what we just did, I didn't blend it all. And that's something, depending on, how large you're working with snow, and if it's a big open field, there's a little more room for blending. But for right now, always just wait to blend. Don't, it's not a terrible thing. It's just let it be for a little bit. Let it live for a little while. We have an hour left. I'm going to go ahead and start on the second one. If you feel too rushed, don't start on the second one. Just keep going on the first one, or just sit back and watch. Whatever you want to do today. It doesn't matter. Whatever makes you happy. So as I said, we have our roadmap. I have the colors sitting out. I have about 10 colors sitting there. So I'm going to take the same patterns that I did before. So I'm going to worry about what's going on in the background. And then come forward. Now, learning from this last one, I might not go so crazy with all the oranges. I'm going to put some back there, but I think I'll be a little more scarce, a little more frugal with all of it. Like dark. So now, because that's the whole other thing. So now that we don't have the underpainting, right? I might just kind of set some of that color in place. Just so that I can have a smooth surface without having to fight the non-texture texture. I want to leave my tooth, so I'm cutting up a couple pieces of pipe insulation just to have handy. This first layer, the dry underpainting, so to speak, because we're not doing the wet. Just going to give it a little shuffle. And I'm not necessarily going to do the whole thing. Like that, what I'm gonna do, I probably put some dark down for the water and blend, but I wanna let the snow live on its own, so, let's see, kind of like that purple there. So this is a little bit of lavender that I ended up adding in. I'm gonna add it in at a different time though. Putting it in a little bit earlier. Now I'm gonna go ahead and put some branches in. Tree trunks.
Okay. Very good.
Because this is so short, all of my trees are running off the top of the page. So, think about that. Don't stop your trees short because that will change how things look. This is the darker color from before. It's not quite the, I will put the red violet in there, but this is the purple gray. And again, because we've done this before, I can move a little faster, which can sometimes be a bad thing. Sometimes I start to move too fast because I know what I'm doing. And then, I don't. So. Level with me. And one thing I have learned about red violet is it's a little bit like greens in the sense that it goes, it blends, it moves, it attaches itself to so many other little colors that come near it. So just be aware. Oh boy. Having a field day over there. Now I'm going to get into some of those lighter gray colors for the twigs and the branches. Funny, now this one color looks almost green, not gray, against the different backgrounds.
It's the lavender.
It could be because of the lavender, but like right next to the orange, it looks green. Who is it? Maria Marino, maybe? Somebody's been doing, it's one of the bigger names, and she'll take like all these different colored sheets of paper and then she'll drag one pastel across it just to show you, how everything looks differently up against a different color. What it looks like lavender in your box, but it's either green or it's blue or it's something else. So now I'm going back to this. And again, I'm moving faster this time, so I could be missing a few things that, I did last time that I'm not really doing this time, so. But I still want to keep loose markings on how the snow moves, the directional strokes.
Medium blue.
Even the blues feel so much different without the
looks
pink
so
underneath.
blue.
Yeah, they look so much different without the pink underneath.
You didn't put the wood in it, the green.
No, that's just the
Look how
paper.
green it is.
I know, right? It's just paper. But I did put more of the dark blue into the background. That I did not do that the
And more
last time.
purple, pink, you did too,
I haven't picked up pink yet.
or purple lavender.
Yeah, I did do some lavender back there. So now I'm gonna take a little more turquoise. So it's almost like the turquoise is necessary to help the blue a little bit. The blue looks really, really flat. So that's something, if you don't like the hot pinks underneath, don't forget to use turquoise along with the blues, and then that'll help them out a little bit. You can go into like a richer lavender purple too for those shadows. Grab a purple and see. So this is a little bit darker of a purple than I had before, but it's a little bit better. So now that I have more creek on this one, my drawing is a little bit different. So I'm gonna put some of that reflection in there. So because I'm adding more creek now, I just have to make sure that my mark making changes to make it look like it's different. Doesn't have to be exactly different. This needs to be a little bit different. So now if I go to put that lightest light in there, I wonder how that's gonna look, or if I need to put in something else. It's really boring. So maybe now I pull out a little bit of pink. Maybe that'll help. It's better than just the white, but it's still. I'm gonna throw some of that up top. Lighten up that background. Hey, Bob.
Hello. Oh,
Sam.
oh,
Sam,
where'd
this
you put
is Tommy. You've met Maureen before.
where'd you put the vacuum for the car?
It's literally turn right around home. It's the regular vacuum.
Oh, you used to regular?
Yeah.
I thought you had it.
Oh, sorry, no. Just the one. Do you know how to take it apart? Do you know how to thing off?
Is that the next game I'm doing?
Sure, if you want just the short handle, you take it out there. If you want. There's an outlet in front of mine.
Shit, that's what I thought. I just-
Yeah, and it should reach. Okay. So trying to get a little bit of curve in that drop off there. So if you know, at this point, I haven't blended the snow, but because I don't have the underpainting. He's trying, he's not gonna get Kaiser to be quiet. That's cute that he's trying. I don't have the underpainting underneath. So, you know, it wouldn't be a horrible thing to, if you wanted to try to blend some of the snow to get a smoother surface. Because, you know, with the underpainting, I want that pink to show through. I want it to create its own little vibration. But without it, you could go a little softer. I'm going to work on the water a little bit before I make that decision. We should be good on time. Yeah, it's 10:45. That was really fast. Okay. See how much faster you move when you think you know what you're doing? I say
It's
think.
funny how you think, draw a picture and all of a sudden you go in a
It's
different direction.
Yep.
Great.
Yep. I, you know, said I had all that roadmap drawn out, but I really not quite. I do need to kind of settle that down now. I don't want to put much more dark pigment down there because it just spreads so far, but I just want to smooth part of it out here. And I can smooth the water out a little bit, and that helps with the texture. But it also kind of takes away a little bit of the character. So I'm going to put some specific marks. Ooh, now it's very specifically going around a bend. Yeah, the reflection of my tree is not a reflection of the tree anymore. Kind of completely changed everything. Hold on. But do I like that? Maybe. Maybe that just becomes a whole different kind of creek. That's kind of what I like, that, you know, the longer you paint, the more willing you are to stop looking at the photograph
Yeah.
at
see
some
what makes
point.
the picture work.
Yeah. Because I'm not a photographer, I'm a painter. I take my photographs to use, but not always what it seems. I'm gonna get some fluffy bits coming out into the water.
For about $20, that's you can get at the car wash one. You can do that.
Well, it is nice.
nice.
Do you know where it was? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, but CVS we go to, right?
Yeah, so right behind it, you'll drive around. There's an oil change place. You just have to drive around. Okay.
Okay.
Tell them you want the premium, and they'll do everything. $20.
Did you ever hear back from PNC?
We might have to maybe stop in, see if that guy's in. I can't do that today.
Well, I know.
Yeah, but if you wanted to go, you could.
I just stop it and be like, hey, we're going for credit cards.
So, well, you can just find out if there's any updates. They need more information.
Because I haven't heard anything.
Like, I haven't been hearing anything since you talked to them.
Yeah,
Like they just kind of stopped giving me updates, I guess.
maybe I made them mad.
Does PNC?
I'll stop by because I think I'm somehow getting caressed into taking Gabby to Walmart and Chick-fil-A after I pick her up.
Oh,
I don't know how this happened.
okay. Well, I'll give you money if you take her.
Well, she has.
If she's spending her money, she can spend her money.
Well, she's spending her money, but she also has Chick-fil-A like gift cards that I got from my work for Christmas. And obviously, I don't eat Chick-fil-A, so I gave them to her.
Okay. All right. All right, so now that I've changed all of that, so I have to step back and look and see what's going to make sense in the water. I added a bunch of lavender. I was chit-chatting there. To see what makes sense, what kind of reflections make sense. It is funny how different they are. All right, this piece is all janky now. So now I guess I can make it, it doesn't have to be, it can be reflective of the sky. It doesn't have to be completely reflective of the ground. I'm trying to just stick with the same color palette instead of dragging in.
You didn't use eggplant.
No, I didn't use eggplant. I got pretty, I mean, it's pretty dark, but not terribly dark. But I'm just trying to, keep with the same, not overcomplicate. I realize I do that. I have a tendency to just keep grabbing colors. And then before I know it, I have this huge pile of sticks that probably wasn't necessary. I've been working on that. I'm probably gonna have to let this one sit for a little bit. It looks pretty good from a distance. I'm not sure it's cool. Nice. Should try. I think he was gonna vacuum. That's on the same circuit. Probably would have blown the circuit. All right, so for this one,
I feel like that one, it feels like. So the light pops more on your left one.
yeah.
Don't you think?
Well, I used pink
Oh,
instead of cream.
yellow. Oh,
Because when I put the yellow down, it didn't do anything because it was too close to the color of the paper. So I used one that had just a touch of pink in it
yeah.
instead. Which it's you can't tell on camera, but so yeah.
Wait, yeah.
So I think I might add the tree branch again. To because I've made this space weird. It's different. It's not quite what anything else was. So I might just make that a tree there, and then I'll call him. I'll live with it for a while and see what happens. All right, so get a. Give it a couple extra little. Just to work on there. I'll use the darker blue first. build up that pile of snow that's sitting on it. And again, I know my darker blue doesn't sit well on top of things. Throw in some of the darker turquoise with that darker blue. And then because I used pink on the other one, I'll use pink on this one. And when I'm doing this, I have to be careful to not drag too much, that I have to, when you get those lighter colors on top of certain darks, not all the darks, just certain darks, it gets a little smeary instead of crisp and clean. So just be careful when you're dragging, just try to be aware of how much is underneath and the different brands that you're using, all that kind of good stuff, because it's all a little bit different. Okay. Now I'm not looking at anything, I'm just kind of going. Some things here. Some of those shadow shapes underneath the piles of snow that I've made up, manufactured. Just that. I like how the background went subtle.
Yeah,
I like that. That looks really nice.
oh, not the background.
Yeah, I know. It's just, but
Like,
you
yeah.
know, it's got a nice soft touch to it. So it's you're not gonna have to do a lot to it.
No.
It's what you with that.
Yeah, I almost like left the color palette on the left.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
But they're different. I mean, it's just this is just
They're
one of
different,
those
yeah.
things, you know,
Plain.
just playing the same things, just different colors, playing with you know, all those colors, and the underpainting is totally a whole vibe,
Yeah.
you know. Yeah. Put that bottom. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording because I don't really have anything else to necessarily say of importance. So I'll go ahead and stop there, and then we can kind of keep working on your own. We'll keep going here. I'll keep tweaking, and then if people want to send me theirs or show me theirs,
Oh, God,
we can do that.